Today's guest is such a rock star. His name is Ric Scalzo. If you've ever tried anything from Gaia Herbs, that's Ric. So he began his exploration of herbal and naturopathic medicine in 1980. So yeah, that was a couple years before I was born. So he's been doing this stuff for a second. Delving into fields such as naturopathic herbal medicine, eclectic herbal medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and various diagnostic methods. He earned a master's degree in herbal medicine from the School of Herbal Medicine and was awarded an honorary doctorate of naturopathic medicine from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. After several years of medical practice, Ric founded Gaia Herbs in 1987 and grew Gaia to the most respected and successful herbal company in the country. After selling Gaia in 2019, Ric established the Institute of Botanical Research in Arizona and established CR Medicinal Farms, a regenerative organic farm in Costa Rica, which is where he's tuning in from on this episode, is in Costa Rica. These became the stepping stones for his new adventure called Kokora, an herbal products company focused on regenerative organic cultivation. You will see I get very, very excited towards the end of the episode because I did not realize that Kokora, which is currently doing it has a smaller product line they just launched, is going to basically become like a full-on supplement line, all from organic, and mostly, he said most of the ingredients will be regenerative. Actually, wait, no, I can't remember. He says in there, I think he said currently they're mostly regenerative, but it'll be a regenerative organic supplement company, all coming from that source. So exciting. Very honored to have Ric on the show. We will go ahead and get into it. Here is Ric Scalzo. All right, Ric. So first of all, I'm so excited to hear about what you're up to now. And just to set the stage a little bit, I mean, Gaia Herbs, you started that in what, in 87, did I read? Or what year was
Right.
it?
You read correctly, 1987.
Hey,
Yeah.
1987. Like, wow, like what a legend you are in the health space. And before we get into your new project now, can you just share a little bit about that journey of like creating Gaia Herbs and what you've been about and what drives you to do what you do?
Yeah, so the journey started, it was really interesting how it started because I had graduated from college and I was very interested in my spirituality and I wanted to know who was God. And I went out and meditated one night under the stars. And the only inspiration I got was if I want to know God, I need to know plants. And so I went off to study healing plants at school and then went on to naturopathic herbal medicine, and eventually I started, well, after seeing about 10,000 patients in practice, I started my journey with Gaia. And yeah, it was
Wow.
quite a journey for 30 years before I sold the company.
Whoa. Okay. So we are full spiritual, like there are no limits here. I mean, we've had from, talking about ayahuasca and plant medicines to energy healers to on the show, you know what I mean? So I that speaks to me so strongly.
Yeah,
You're saying that what you got was like, if you want to understand God, you need to understand plants.
that's correct. I needed to learn plants and learn the language of plants and learn the expressions, the operating expressions or principles of nature, because which guide the growth and evolution of plants to their peak, maturity. So, a lot of observation, a lot of stillness. You know how it's like when you're wanting to build your intuition and you
Mhm.
attract, more knowledge within just by creating more stillness within,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're speaking to my soul. I mean, I'll run this by you. I haven't even said this to anybody out loud, but I was sitting in meditation maybe, I don't know, a few months ago, and I heard out of nowhere, I heard all plants heal. Like out of left field, I'm just in this like space. And then I was like, all of them? I was like, no. I was like, all of them? And I heard, yeah, all of them. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of like let it go. And then I kind of came back to it and I was like, wait, well then like why don't we know that? And I just heard a lot has been lost. A lot has been lost.
Uh,
And there's just a
You
lot
know,
you
and,
still don't understand.
my take on how the lost, has happened is because
Uh-huh.
life has become too busy
Yeah.
and our inner world is interfered with, from the busyness of our outer world. And,
Mhm.
we can't hear anymore. We don't, I mean, I don't mean hear with our ears. We can't hear with our intuition and
Yeah.
experience the real language of plants.
Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense why you called it Gaia Herbs now. It's all coming together. Okay. All right. So let's shift into what you're doing now a little bit. And we'll just kind of go back and forth as it flows. So tell us what you're up to these days.
So when I sold Gaia, one of the things I always wanted to do, and coming from the naturopathic world and naturopathic medical world, I have been very friendly with the president of what was then called Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in Arizona. And Dr. Mittman and I, the president of the school, had a dream one day that when my journey is done with Gaia, I'm going to make a donation to the college to build an institute for botanical research because I wanted to put botanical medicine under the roof of a naturopathic college, and and have it be given some really high level integrity. So we did it, and that was my first journey of going to, which is now the Sonoran University of Health Sciences, and going to Dr. Mittman and creating, building out an institute right on the campus there. And so we
Mm.
built out the Ric Scalzo Institute for Botanical Research. It's now staffed with, I don't know, half a dozen scientists and
Wow.
lots of technicians and fully equipped with state-of-the-art research and implementation. So that was journey number one to get that
Cool.
done. And and now, you know, interestingly enough, right at that time, just shortly after, COVID happened. So our first real juicy research experiment was to look at plants that can have an effect on COVID. And fortunately, we were associated with Arizona State University and we could test the live COVID virus in vitro. And so I said to the researchers there, let's start with 80 plants and let's screen 80 plants on bioassay cell line culture and see if there's any indication for efficacy here. And we reduced the list to 40 and then 10. And then I selected the top four of those 10, and we found some pretty amazing actions on a handful of herbs that were active on this class of virus. And that was really exciting to me. And so I've done a lot with it since then. And that speaks to some of the forthcoming products coming out in my new line, Kokora, in September. Products that
Hmm.
would support the immune wellness. So that was project number one. Project number two, which might speak more to your heart, is the purchase of land in Costa Rica to start this regenerative farm. And
Mm.
so I bought 100 hectares down here, 100 acres, I'm sorry, 50, about 50 hectares. And we began planting medicinal plants, tropical medicinal plants, such as turmeric, ashwagandha, holy basil, ginger, passion flower, bacopa, and a few
Wow.
others. And we are now the only regenerative organic certified gold status herb farm, a regenerative farm in Costa Rica. And I don't know of one that is gold certified in the US. So we've taken it to a very high level of regenerative practice.
What,
Um,
real quick, sorry, what gold certified? What's that?
So when you get certification, organic
Hmm.
certification under the Regenerative Organic Alliance
Hmm.
practice, you can either get a bronze or silver or gold status. And so they give you a criteria list of 15 points of regenerative practice that you need to meet. And by meeting all 15, you're awarded a gold certification. And we have done that. And part of the reason why we have done that is we put so much attention on the microbiome of the soil and how to really build up the soil food web. I'm not sure if your listeners have heard that term, but the soil food web is where it's all about.
Yeah. Okay. Let's pause. I'm like, wait, hold on. I want to talk about the plants that you studied, and but let's pause here for a second. On the the certification, like what you have to the criteria to be able to have the certification, right? I'm curious because I know when I told you I did a partnership on a regenerative agriculture awareness event in Oklahoma, and the Noble Research Institute came out, and somebody from the Savory Institute came out, and they were talking about what you have to do to be able to qualify. And like I don't know if this is like a different qualification, but it just stuck with me so deeply. One of the things that they had to show was there were certain like weeds, I guess you could say, grasses, native plants that had to be growing in that soil for that area, so they could see it was something like it like unlocked. They could see that the soil was so healthy that these dormant seeds had been unlocked. And this is native grasslands. This is a ranch, right? So maybe a little different, but it was so touching for me to see like, oh wow, like this is really cool. Like this certification that they're doing is actually like, I was like, that's amazing. That's what you have to show. And so I'm just kind of curious in terms of, what kind of criteria are they looking for to certify somebody as an organic regenerative?
Yeah, yeah. Specifically, the certification criteria is first you have to be certified in the NOP program. So the USDA National Organic Program, you have to already have
Okay.
your
Yeah.
organic certificate. Second, you have to be fair trade certified. That
Nice.
means you have to apply practices that speak to fair trade.
Okay.
And then thirdly, it gets down to the actual farming practices. A big part of it is how much of your acreage is covered, because
Nice.
one of the sins of regenerative farming is exposed soil, carbon releasing into the atmosphere, and the degradation of your soil food web. That all happens when you don't have a green carpet on your soil.
Mhm.
The other thing that they look at is how are you nourishing back to health the soil food web. And in Costa Rica, we call there's something we call ME. I don't know if you've heard that term before. ME
Mm-mm.
flows.
Mm-mm.
It stands for mountain microorganisms. So the way we build the microorganisms back up, Tara, is we go out to the forest and we get a little of the forest floor, some soil, some branches, leaves, the decomposing material. We bring it back to our bio plant, which I built, and we mix it with a little semolina. We mix that with some molasses. We mix that with some coffee hulls, and we mix that with some cloves and some cinnamon and some other herbs, and we mix it all up and we put it into 50-gallon tea bags. And we tie it up with a string, and then we take that 50-gallon tea bag and macerate it in a 200-gallon tank and let it ferment for 2 weeks at least. And
Mm.
on the top of the tank is layered all this fermented growth of microorganisms that comes
Whoa.
from the forest floor. And this is important because you mentioned the local grasses. Well, in our case, the local fauna and flora of the forest. And so we have now this
Wow.
liquid material that is rich in microorganism growth, real rich in
Yeah.
bio. And so we take that and we apply it into our fields. And I purchased something
Wow.
called, since you know a little bit about regenerative farming, I purchased an implement called the yeoman's plow. The yeoman's plow has these long 24-inch shanks, and they don't turn the soil over, but they open up pathways to inject the mountain microorganism liquid that we make into the soil 24 inches deep. And so in all of our beds, we have these shanks creating open channels for us to fill in with the mountain microorganisms. And then you just get an explosion of growth of the soil food web. And what it's
Wow.
doing, it's changing the characteristics of nitrogen in the soil, and it's changing the characteristics of what I call quorum sensing in the soil, where prior you may have had more pathogens in the soil than beneficials. Now the quorum is favoring more beneficials than pathogens. And so now your soil can go to work, and the microorganisms can carry the nutrients right into the root structure of the plants. This is why,
Wow.
Terry, you routinely hear regenerative farming associated with higher nutrient density.
Right.
what that means is more nutrition, or in the case of medicinal herbs, more phytonutrients or phytochemicals in the plants that you're growing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just was appreciating you saying that about the phytonutrients, because I went to a regenerative farm in Ohio one time, and they did a presentation on they have a lab on their property where they test the mineral content,
Yeah.
and they were showing me this presentation they had made of the mineral content of their regeneratively grown plants versus stuff they had gotten from the grocery store. And I was appalled at how low the mineral content was in these conventional plants compared to the ones grown regenerative. I'm like, this is why everybody's minerals are messed up. But they didn't have that for phytonutrients. So I just really appreciate you highlighting how important that is. Like, of course, like with a healthier microbiome, the plant is going to be able to have a higher nutrient density overall because it just has more resources and probably better functioning. I don't know. Do you have more to say on
I
that?
do. I do. I
Okay.
can give some concrete example of how that
Thanks.
really manifests
Okay, cool.
in our turmeric crop alone. Growing it organically, you would average about 2.5% curcuminoids. You've heard of curcumin, the active
Yeah.
molecule in turmeric. Curcuminoids are the the metabolites of curcumin, and so you get about 2.5%. When we converted 1 year, same field, to regenerative organic, the level of the curcuminoids in the turmeric roots went up from 2.5% to 8.5%. So that's
Wow.
about a fourfold increase. That's tremendous.
Wow.
That's like saying you're yielding, uh, you know, 1/4 of the amount of medicine organically versus what you're getting regeneratively. And
Wow.
not only that, the biomass yield went up from 15,000 kilos per hectare to 80,000 kilos per hectare. So farmers who think,
Nice.
well, we can't grow profitably regeneratively because it's just too much involved. I would argue that with the increased mass, the increased biomass that you're getting, you'll be more profitable.
Mm. Wow. I mean, I just curious because I've always thought, yes, we have plastics and we have all these toxins and we have all this crazy chemical storm going on in our world now that human bodies aren't used to. But I also have just feel like so much of the health problems that we're running into are also because our plants are so depleted of what they're supposed to have. Do you have thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
you're absolutely right. They are depleted. All of our food is depleted of the nutrients that are necessary for our immune health and our metabolic health and the overall well functioning of the body and mind. And when you talk about increased nutrient density through regenerative farming, this is where it's all about. It's not the only thing because I pay attention to the bigger picture of this massive contamination in our environment as a whole, the air, the water, and so forth, and how much carbon, you know, that we have to attend to now.
Yeah.
And when you grow regeneratively, you are sequestering carbon. You are drawing down carbon. You're not just being carbon neutral. You're taking the carbon down. And
Mhm.
that's what we want to do. And if every farm converted to regenerative farming, you would see that the carbon levels will drop without even changing the way we, use plastics or petroleum. So we can accomplish carbon drawdown simply by converting to regenerative agriculture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like winning multiple wins. Like you win, your food is healthier, you're healthier,
Exactly.
the
Yes.
planet wins, the greater whole wins. Like everybody wins when we
Yeah.
basically mimic nature how it was supposed to be, and not only mimic it, but also be good stewards of it, which is what I hear with your what do you call that? The plow thing that you have?
Yeoman's plow.
Yo
That's
man.
that's the name of it. It's an Australian implement, and so it's
Okay.
yeoman's plow.
Okay, cool. Okay, I want to go back a little bit to you said there were these four plants, right? That you were looking at different plants and COVID, and that led you to this. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you found there?
To the extent I'm able to, but yeah,
Yeah.
I will. Um, we one of the plants that came up over and over again was Andrographis. Have you heard of this plant before?
No.
Andrographis. Uh, it's found in Ayurvedic medicine,
Okay.
and it's one of the more bitter plants that I've ever tasted. And it's a low growing plant, maybe grows, I don't know, a foot, almost a foot to 18 inches tall. And we harvest the aerial parts. And this plant exhibited one of the strongest effects of against COVID in vitro. What does that mean? Is we took the live virus and we subjected it to extracts of different plants, and we seen what are the effects of the plant on the virus in vitro. And Andrographis exhibited one of the strongest actions. Another plant was Sweet Annie. I don't know if you've heard of Sweet Annie.
No.
Some people call it sweet wormwood, another type of wormwood, but it's got a very aromatic, fragrant aroma. And this was a source. This plant was interesting because it was a source originally for treatment of malaria in Africa in the early days. And then they
Wow.
extracted the artemisian from wormwood in order to make a synthesized medicine for treating malaria today. But this plant has a lot of artemisian, and it has some other unique phytochemicals that we found to be active in the research. And the 1, 2 stars of this research was Andrographis and Sweet Annie.
Hmm.
And they are plants that I'm using in some of my Kokora immune products now. Um, yeah,
Oh.
you'll see them coming out in the fall.
Oh, cool. Okay, so tell us about Kokora.
So this was the third project. After I started the farm and got
Hmm.
certified regenerative farming, we started down the Kokora journey. What would it look like? And we had done a lot of due diligence on what was the opportunity for Kokora. Is there an opportunity? I did a lot with Gaia, but I wanted to know, is there more I can do if I started over again? And the answer to me came after we interviewed about 25,000 people to determine what are people thinking about? What are the demographics looking for? Who are the demographics? And what kept coming up was the word regenerative. And believe it or not, I'm sure you're a fan of it, but regenerative kept coming up over and over in people's minds. If we were going to launch something, can we do it regeneratively? And can we speak to, what it might take to lead a life that is truly regenerative? And so I had already started the farm. I had the research institute going, and now it was about, can we bring a product line together and raise the bar that, in terms of my professional experience of quality, so that we can create a product that speaks to, the highest standards I could ever imagine, and which we are achieving with Kokora. And
And
so
and yeah, and so what is Kokora? Where are you at with it, and what are you
So
out in the
we
world?
we launched some products in October, and we're only 5 months into the market. And so these are functional powders. We call them ashwagandha and super mushroom powders. They're not certified regenerative organic. They are certified organic, but they contain a large percentage of regenerative organic herbs in them.
Cool.
And these are functional powders, so you mix them in smoothies and in drinks, or you put them in your foods or whatever. Now, come the end of April, we'll be launching the full certified regenerative organic line of capsules for single herbs and formulas that are many people are looking for today, like adrenal health, energy, sleep, stress,
Whoa.
memory, and so forth. And these will all be certified regenerative organic, made with the herbs grown on our farm, and then using a unique delivery system without any impurities in the capsule. So the delivery system we're using is freeze drying. And so when you freeze dry the way we are not it's not necessary to use excipients in your drying process. You may not know this, but most capsulated herbs are spray dried after they're extracted, and they require a spray drying agent like maltodextrin or some other excipient that is present to the tune of about 40% in the capsules. So Kokora is not using any excipients to dry its herbs after it's extracted.
Wow.
It's frozen, it's freeze dried, and it's totally pure. And so one of the benefits of that is not just the purity, but it's also the concentration that we get from doing it this way. So Kokora has really raised the bar on how potent these herbs are.
Wow, this is very exciting. You have a customer. You have a referral source.
Um,
Like,
oh, thank you.
yeah, that's very exciting. I mean, I think part of the reason, if you guys are listening to this and you haven't gone down the regenerative rabbit hole, I have other podcasts about that. Please find out, because once you understand the state of the earth, and not only what's happening with our farming and our topsoil and the carbon and all that, but also what's happening in the oceans and these mass, tearing up of the bottom of the ocean floor, and this desperation and all this fish we're throwing away. Like, think of how much meat and fish and all this stuff is just getting thrown away every day globally. Like, we are just demanding so much of the earth. Um, and when you start to understand that when you buy something that was raised regeneratively, it's like it feels like a 2 for 1. It's like I'm getting something
Yeah,
really amazing,
yeah.
high quality, and, like, donating. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm, like, donating to a good cause. I'm like, "I'll pay whatever you want. Like, just please keep doing it that way." I feel like truly, like, I'm voting, like, "Yes, I am single-handedly gonna help drive the market that way. This is what the people want," And I think when you look at it that way, it's I mean, yeah, it's very fulfilling to buy things that are simultaneously helping you and helping the greater whole. So I just appreciate you doing it. And that's what kind of my question here. I'm like, okay, so you Gaia Herbs, like, that must have been a journey. First of all, you, like, had your whole naturopathic career doing, 10,000 patients, then the whole Gaia Herbs journey. That must have been a lot. Then you sold that. Then you opened this research facility. Now you're in Costa Rica doing this. Like, I just have to ask, because, like, the standard model of life is like work hard and retire and sip on the beach your mai tais. Like, what drives you? Like, tell me more about how you think and what's going on underneath you to keep that kind of fire burning. And those, I mean, must be all your health knowledge. I mean, you obviously have, like, a lot of, like, vitality in you still, but that is a long career of a lot of big stuff. So what is it underneath that, like, has driven you for so long?
It's a beautiful observation. Thank you. And yeah, it's really beautiful the way you've just expressed that, and I really do appreciate it because, I've traveled for the last 3 years to the Blue Zone areas, documenting
Mm,
the centenarians, wanting to understand what it is that centenarians are doing to live a health span and a lifespan that's worthy of calling life. And
yeah,
um, and you know, it all comes down to one word, ikigai.
yeah.
Heard that term before?
Uh-huh, yeah, I use it with my clients, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell the people.
So it's the junction point between what you love, what is good for the world, and what you love to do, and what really inspires you and makes you happy, and how you support yourself in your journey through life.
Mm,
And the real kind of takeaway from living your ikigai is to create a life that remains in flow and in purpose. Every day when we wake up, we should feel like we have a contribution to make to others and to the planet. And the more you feel purposeful and useful, and the more your life flows in your ikigai, the healthier you'll be. And I have found this firsthand in the blue zones where I visited. And it's just, the thing is you don't retire in life. you continue on along your life purpose, your life flow, and you stay active. And
Yeah.
this is what I think is really, one of the secrets of healthy living is staying active. And you're a health coach and you're a fitness coach, and you know the meaning and the purpose of that. And so I thank you for bringing it out, because it's so
Yeah.
so important today for when we talk about health span and lifespan.
Yeah, I'm kind of hearing like, okay, I live on the big island of Hawaii, and there's a very large, like, conscious community, hippies, spiritual community in this area. And there's so many older people that, like, yeah, maybe their body is technically older, but like their vitality is like 25, like they're just dancing all the time and in the ocean and swimming and playing, and they're
Mhm.
living, they're having fun, they're enjoying. And I'm hearing from you that part of your enjoyment of living is you're good at this stuff. You're good at building businesses and making things happen. And it probably gives you a lot of joy to do that with something that's so meaningful and kind of keeps that spark going in you. So good on you. I'm glad you're good at this and
Yeah,
are still doing
it's
it.
about reciprocity too. I learned
Yeah.
something from nature. There's two operating principles in nature, and that is receptivity and reciprocity. Nature is always giving and always, nurturing, and there's a reciprocity in that giving. And
Mm,
so there's an evolution of life that takes place. And the more we keep those values alive in our life, the healthier we will become. And, for me, I love the journey of teaching, and but it happens when there's receptivity. And I tell this to anybody who says, Rick, can I apprentice with you? And I said, so long as there's receptivity, and you have,
mm,
the openness and willingness to ask questions and draw it out, I'm going to be reciprocal for you.
mm. Nice. Any other, while you're on this vein of nature, lessons you've learned from plants and from nature? Any others that come to mind for you?
Well, yeah, we've been one of the things I've been doing lately, Tara, is kind of translating the six principles of naturopathic medicine and translating into the six principles of regenerative culture and regenerative leadership in business.
Ooh.
And to try to give business leaders a different concept of what it's like to build a regenerative life, because we show up and work 8, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and we're giving a lot. And I think in business, in our work, we should have a regenerative attitude, a regenerative culture. And it all
Yeah.
starts with learning about, the very first principle of naturopathic medicine is the vis medicatrix naturae, which translates into the healing power of nature.
Mm,
So where we start is to embrace the truth, the underlying truth that nature is our teacher and nature is our healer. And
yeah.
along one of the second or third principles of naturopathic medicine, the second, third principle is tole totem and tole causum, and treat the whole person, treat the cause, and docere ac docere, and that means the teacher, the doctor shows up as a teacher. And so that there's a lot impacted you know in regenerative culture when you look at these four principles: the vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature; tole totem, treat the whole body; tole causum, treat the cause; and docere ac docere, show up as a teacher, and he not just a healer but as a teacher to guide others. And I think for me, building on how these principles of naturopathic medicine actually are real principles of nature itself, and how they can be principles of our household, of our business, of the culture in our business, and of the leadership, and how leaders should emulate these principles in their businesses.
Wow. That sounds amazing. Did you say you're writing a book about this, or
I'm,
how are you doing
I'm writing a lot right now. Maybe it'll manifest
it?
in a book.
Okay, cool. When you said, the doctor as a teacher. I thought of you with that plow because yeah, you're like doctoring the soil, but you're also teaching it like how to behave and what's possible for it and all of that just by inserting those different that fermented, what do you call it? Like probiotics, I guess.
Yeah. The, mou-
Prebiotic probiotic blend for the soil.
the, the mountain microorganisms, we call it
Yeah.
the Emmy for sure.
Yeah, yeah, kind of made me think of that too. Lots of ways that we teach. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So, in terms of Kokora, like, is that going to be just purely website? Like, how are you distributing these?
Yeah, multi-channel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
right now, uh, we're entering into the retail world. So we
Cool.
have about 400 retail stores, independent stores, already opened in the last 3 or 4 months, and we're live on
Oh,
Amazon. Yeah, I know that's a lot.
whoa.
We expect we'll be in 1,000 stores by the by September, beginning of the last quarter. And
Wow.
part of that, Tara, is because of my reputation in the
Yeah.
naturopath.
Right.
A lot of people have awareness of what I've done and what and have a lot
Hmm.
of respect for that. Now we're also showing up on Amazon. We have our own Amazon page, and you may have seen what we're doing on social media for, our social media presence and building up an affiliate program with affiliates who want to work with our brand and represent it in their stories. So it's a multi-channel approach,
Yeah.
and it's all happening simultaneously.
Cool. Well, I'm so glad it's not your first rodeo with this because as somebody who is pretty obsessed with like, please, can more people get on board with regenerative? So the market trends that way. So that's the only way we're going to get more regenerative agriculture going is if people buy the products. So the more we buy those products, the more that shift starts to happen in the world, you know? I mean, maybe not the only way, but definitely will help.
I think so. And I think through that, we can build a story, a narrative about what it means to live a life regenerated. And,
Yeah.
because that at the end of the day, we all are seeking health and longevity. We may
Yeah.
not know it, but, the moment we aren't healthy, we hurt and we want to get healthy again, and I think
Mhm.
everybody is in search of health in a great health span.
Yeah. Well, you're a living, breathing example of it. Thank you. I'm inspired just on a business level. I'm like, wow, like I'm trying to think, I'm like, what else is ahead? Like, I'm sure, when you were in the middle of Gaia Herbs, like, look at you now, you're living in Costa Rica with this. Yeah, it's such an adventure. So thank you for being such an example of what's possible in terms of putting your passions, your gifts, your soul, your higher self, using that spiritual guidance and then the gifts of your nature of your soul to work. It's really inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing it out. Just whole concept of living in partnership with nature. I think you mentioned it before, how important that we are collaborative, right?
Mhm.
With nature, that we show up every day in collaboration and not in opposition.
Yeah.
And mention regenerative farming. Every conventional farming practice is in opposition to the formative forces of nature. Think about that. Every single one of them is in opposition to the formative forces of nature. And no wonder why our immune systems are weakened from the food we eat, the medicines that we choose to take, the environments that we create and live in now. Everything has impacted us in a way that's not leading to a health span that we want. So you are absolutely right when you say regenerative farming touches many touch points beyond just the farming. Um,
Yeah.
and I applaud you for bringing awareness to that.
Yeah. Thank you for what you're doing. I always say it's not my calling to actually run a regenerative operation. So, but thank you to those of you who are. Thank you so much. So, yeah, well, I'm excited. I will definitely be a cheerleader for Kokora because I really, really appreciate what you guys are doing. And yeah, it was just such an honor to meet you. So, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share with us
Yeah,
today.
it's a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Inside Out Health Podcast. I hope it's been helpful to you in your journey. If you think that it might be helpful to someone you know, please share it with them. Please share on social media. It really helps me grow the show and reach more people with these amazing messages. And if you could be so kind as to rate the show and possibly even leave me a review, that really helps. So much thanks in advance if you do that. And yeah, please subscribe if you want to hear more of this type of content. I have lots of amazing expert guests on the way. All right. Thank you.